author Wynn Parks wrote, "Artist Bret Taylor was one of the far-flung children of the 60s. In the era of high spirits and social revolution, when his peers were opting for demonstrations, Taylor chose a more classic road to romance. He dreamed of living on the coast of the Mediterranean, painting in the spirit of Picasso and Braque, and creating an art school on a Greek island. And he accomplished all of that by the time he was just 22 years old. The Greek spirit, community, and culture must have been intoxicating for the young artist. I remember watching this Greek community dance and thinking it a kind of ecstasy. We fall in love with artists who die young. Flying too close to the sun, they burn with intensity before art and life bring them crashing down. Bret was born in Florida on the 2nd of March, 1943, the son of Henry White Taylor, a well-regarded artist from Philadelphia. His father died when Bret was only 7 months old. Taylor's mother, Micaiah, had been passionately in love with Henry. She constantly told her son that he had his father's talent. In the early 60s, Bret studied at the Tyler School of Art, where his mother had become an administrator. By 1965, Bret was teaching printmaking at the Cheltenham Arts Center. The Vietnam War was raging, but Bret's high lottery number saved him from the draft. Along with Gladys Wagner, his boss and mentor at Cheltenham, Bret began looking into starting an arts program abroad. He married his girlfriend, photographer Nina Landau, and they traveled by freighter to Greece to scout out locations for a school. Once they saw the island of Paros, they knew this was it. This archival footage by Petros Rogoussis gives you an idea of what the island's capital city looked like back then. Bret found a large old Venetian-built house with plenty of studio space and even a wine cellar. The Aegean School of Fine Arts had no entrance requirements or grades and attracted adventurous students immediately. Bret said, "It's like selling ambience. All I have to do is fuel the process with art supplies, aesthetics, and group interaction." And Bret got a very good deal on art supplies. Philadelphia's Roman Hawes Company provided for free great drums of Roplex, the vehicle which binds acrylic paint. He obtained inexpensive pigments from local hardware stores. Canvas was, unsurprisingly for a Greek island, sailcloth. Wynn Parks wrote, "During those early years after leaving the U.S., Taylor himself found new direction in his work. In studio, he painted for the students to illustrate points about spontaneity, on occasion impatiently dipping his brush into liquid medium, then into powdered pigment, and from there to the canvas, where he mixed and painted at the same time." Braque adored the natural wonders of Paros. He raised a family of baby owls. Although his work tended toward imaginative abstractions of reality, his paintings and drawings of birds and other wildlife show his skill as a representational artist. A dedicated amateur ornithologist, Braque compiled this field guide to the birds of Paros. Sadly, Nina did not adapt well to this rustic life. After a couple years, she left for Crete with a Greek friend. Heartbroken, Braque immersed himself in painting and attempted to drown his sorrows with alcohol. But once he finally accepted the breakup, his art gained a new intense style. In 1967, he painted Venus on the Half-Shell, which he thought of as a breakthrough and included many of the motifs and tropes he would follow from then on. When he met a theater student named Stephanie Nathan, who became his model and companion, his paintings became even more exuberant. So how is a viewer supposed to grapple with them? Artist Frank Galuska was very close with Braque and taught painting at the Aegean School. Here's an excerpt from an essay that Frank wrote about his friend's art. When asked about his paintings, Braque Taylor was more likely to be cagey than clear. He didn't want to be limited, circumscribed, or pigeonholed. He knew that his paintings could speak in the language he gave them. And more than this, he didn't want to tell anyone what to think. Braque eventually fashioned for himself a collection of fundamental images: paddle-headed men, women in profile, chairs, tables, household utensils, animals, fields and skies, the surf, the sea, Paros, the life of an island. It is possible on Paros to climb to high points and to observe the whole island at one's feet. The horizon rises with the ascent until it looks like a vast dish. Aided by the encircling horizon, the sky feels so much like a dome that the observer feels more than ever before that he is at the center of all that he sees. The shocking Aegean light not only isolates and flattens forms, it confuses the perception of distances. In Braque's paintings, this experience led to original speculations beyond Cubist descriptions of space. Most Cubist paintings present intimate subjects in cozy spaces. Even when the subject is a landscape, all the elements are made to crowd up toward the picture plane. In the open island spaces, Braque was likely to look from the earth at his feet to a distant chunk of coastline, see little difference in contrast and clarity between them, and exchange the two playfully in his mind. Another theme that captured Braque's imagination was technology. In the wonderfully entitled Moses Shortcut Snapshot, the Old Testament luminary gets his picture taken with some kind of Instamatic camera. Though half a world away from Cape Canaveral, Braque paid homage to the one giant leap for mankind. Moonwalk was exhibited at the American Embassy in Athens. Braque wrote a fictional account of Neil Armstrong looking at it there and saying, "It seems that Mr. Taylor preceded us." In the 1970s, the Aegean School of Fine Art was getting students from all over the world. Over 100 American colleges and universities would give academic credits to their students who studied with Braque and his faculty. Braque brought in visiting artists to teach, including painter Willy Hempel, who had studied at the Bauhaus, and sculptor Gypsy Mills, best friend of pop star Donovan. In 1972, Braque and his school were lauded in National Geographic. Braque brought a group of classical musicians from Boston to form the Paros Chamber Ensemble. They were a hit with local Greeks unaccustomed to Mozart and other classical composers. Why? The writer for National Geographic wanted to know. "I can explain," offered a man standing beside me in the crowd. He was Brett Taylor, formerly a teacher at Temple University, who now directs his own Aegean School of Fine Arts. Greeks are naturally musical and instinctively like any kind of good music. To paraphrase Sigmund Freud, artists create in order to get fame, wealth, and beautiful lovers. Although the first two eluded him, Braque had no problems with the third. And in 1971, he hit the jackpot when he met art student Gail Wetzel, who would become the love of his life. Gail became an administrator at the school and helped Braque to buy the Careen, his beloved sailboat. But after 7 years of operation, the Aegean School was having financial problems. Paros was getting to be quite the tourist spot and very expensive. And before the end of the decade, Braque would lose his wonderful building. Things were definitely getting harder. Braque told the Dominion Post in 1979, "It's not a comfortable life. We don't have any salaries. We just take enough to pay our rent and food. And by the time you get to your mid-30s, you begin to wonder what would happen if you got sick or suddenly had to fly to the States and you had no insurance and only a couple $100 in your pocket." Then he stoutly added, but I chose it. What Bret Taylor chose, for better or worse, was to live as an artist, and he did so for all his days. Wynn Parks told me that as Bret's financial situation grew worse, his drinking exploded, rising to dangerous levels. Frank Galuska said Bret had joked that because Paros water was so salty, when he wanted to drink water, he drank wine. And when he wanted to drink wine, he drank raki, the Greek hard stuff. Although a doctor warned Bret that if he continued to drink, he would die, he didn't stop. In the spring of 1983, both Bret and Gail became so ill, he from alcohol and she from an infection, that they were flown to the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. Their beds were on separate floors. When Gail recovered, Bret sent her a bottle of champagne with a note saying, "I am in a state of utter relief." But Bret died on April 12th, leaving his beloved Gail as a widow, just as he had turned 40 years old. In June of 1983, Gail and Bret's friend Wynn Parks sprinkled Bret's ashes into the Aegean. One of the great pleasures of making a movie about a person I never met who lived in a place I've never been is the license to speculate. The poet Rainer Maria Rilke said, "Fame is the sum total of all misunderstandings circulated about a person." While the facts in this film came from Bret's friends Wynn Parks and Frank Galuska, all the circulated misunderstandings are entirely my own. So what's the legacy of this young artist who died so many years ago? The art school that he founded in 1966 is still going strong, albeit with a slightly altered name. Also, Bret has been taken on by an organization called Discoveries in American Art, whose mission is to identify excellent artists who have not as yet received the full recognition they deserve. You can read Wynn Parks' invaluable essay about Bret on their website. Plus, the current issue of Catamaran magazine features Bret's art and another piece by Wynn Parks about a death-defying sea voyage the two made together. And New York City's Hollis Taggart Gallery will be hosting a solo show of Bret Taylor's paintings beginning November 30th, 2023.